Good morning, Eastern Oregon, on this October the 14th, on this EOAlive version, your connection to Eastern Oregon. How are you, man?
I'm good. It must be early. You forgot the EO on Alive.
I wondered. I ran through it. Normally, I try and rehearse it right before we go live, and so then it's like, oops, I didn't rehearse it.
That's probably why you forgot it, because you rehearse it.
Oh, because I did or I didn't?
Yeah, because you did, because you put the pressure on yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
We had a pretty successful show last night with Cody. That was really good. We got Deputy Jensen and Molly in here, and man, that was a blast. They gave us these cool coins.
I know, I got one.
I'm gonna keep showing that off.
Yeah, I know, very cool.
Yeah.
It's got some weight to it. It's almost like it's like a clay. I don't know.
It's like a poker chip. It's a poker chip.
Is that what they are? Is that what?
Yeah, it feels like that feels like a poker chip to me.
Oh. Well, that would kind of make sense. And it's got, and it has the Instagram.
Oh, it does?
At K9 Molly.
Oh, I see. On the edge.
on the edge. Sorry. Yeah.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah, it's kind
of. There you go. Come on, focus.
It's focusing on your big head, dude.
So that's Molly's Instagram. If you guys want to go and support, they have swag. What did he say? They have the little plush Molly dogs that you can buy to help buy her gear.
Yeah, no, it was very cool.
We didn't talk about the C word one time.
COVID.
I wasn't gonna say it, but
I know, but still, it was like, no, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. It was excellent.
Yeah, so be sure and if you did not see that, be sure and find it on our network somewhere and check that out. Very worthwhile.
Yeah, there's a bunch of places you can watch it. You can listen to the podcast. There's YouTube, Facebook.
Yeah. So, well, what else is going on?
Oh, it's going to be a slow week there this weekend. I think LeGrand has a bye football wise. All we have EOU wise at home is men's and women's soccer tomorrow and Saturday.
Okay.
Compared to last weekend, that's nice and slow.
That's right. Yeah. Well, here's what it's looking like out there. And TJ, thanks for piping in from
Glendive, Montana.
Yeah.
I found out yesterday that there's a Corvallis in Montana too.
I know.
I never knew that.
I didn't either. But
man, that does not look promising out there.
No, it doesn't. Let's look what Gabe has here.
Possible. Well, yeah, I mean, sprinkles not possible. It's happening. So I mean, that's he got that right. And we're gonna get rain throughout the day. High of 51. Lows in the mid 30s. So it's gonna start freezing on us. So if you got stuff outside, get it figured out. Get winterized.
Yeah, I winterized all my stuff this last weekend. And then here's tomorrow, Friday. Be a little warmer in the middle of the day tomorrow.
Yep, not quite as cold. Lows in the upper 30s. And it doesn't look like there shouldn't be too much rain in the afternoon, which is good. Rain's depressing. I lived in the rain for 18 years. I mean, it rained all the time in Western Oregon. It was terrible.
I moved here from Seattle. It's been about 25 years ago, but it's
the same.
I don't know. For me, it was depressing, but after a while you just got to where you got wet. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Rain's better than snow, TJ. I'd have to respectfully disagree with that.
You like snow better than rain?
Yeah. Well, and I hate snow.
I know.
Snow doesn't make you wet.
Yeah.
Like you can go do stuff in snow and you don't get soaked to the bone.
Yeah. See, in Seattle, it was was more misting all the time. I mean, it just, you just kind of got used
to
the
kind of like the coast, like when you're over there in like Lincoln City, and it's just that mist. I camped in that one time. It was horrible.
Yeah, Stu knows that. Stu's going to come on here in a few minutes, and he was in Kirkland for a while, right? Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, so we're going to have Stu Spence, the Parks Department dude, come on. Let's just bring him on. Talk about stuff. How are you, man?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I called you the Parks Department dude, but it's that's what the city calls it, but they've kind of thrown a ton of stuff under your umbrella. Why don't we start there, Stu? Tell us kind of what you do there.
Yeah, so Parks and Recreation dude, right? Parks and Recreation director is my title. So for the city of LeGrand, and I've got all the parks. We've got 14 parks and green spaces and urban forestry, and we did this little quiz in Rotary, but we take care of over 5,000 park and street trees in the city limits. Pretty impressive. Also, we've got the pool, of course, Veterans Memorial Pool. Everybody loves that, right? And recreation program. So today I think we're going to talk about two out of the four, the parks, improvements of the ball fields, and part of the recreation program with the after school launch here next Monday.
So, and Morgan Lake is in there too, right?
It is, yeah. Morgan Lake, yep. Morgan Lake, Riverside Park are unique because they're outside the city limits, but they are inside the city limits because they're city parks. So it's kind of a unique scenario. Most parks departments, it's all inside the city limits and there's no separation. So it's very unique in LeGrand, and we're happy to have those two, obviously, in our inventory. They're two stars of the parks that we all enjoy.
How did Morgan Lake? Do you know any of the history? I mean, it's just so odd that it's not just outside the city; it's miles outside the city. How did that happen?
Right. So Morgan Lake was dug in like 1900 or the very early 1900s for a reservoir to create to basically provide water for a power plant downhill. So they dug this reservoir. They found some springs up there. So they dug a reservoir filled with water, and then they plumbed it all the way down the hill. At the bottom of the hill, there was a big power plant that ran. Then eventually that power plant closed, went out of business. It changed ownerships a few times. And I think in the 50s, it was deeded to the city as kind of like a wildlife refuge. And then over time, the city developed it into a campground and a park and a boating access site with restrooms and docks. And, the Rotary Club was involved with the docks. There's been a variety of folks, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. We're going to put a new restroom building up there in the spring at the entrance, just like the one over by the fishing dock. So we've done a lot of improvements up there with signage and campsites, and it's been big. As Morgan Lake used to be pretty rough, back when Dodsey was cruising around. I bet he has.
I never did anything at Morgan Lake. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I think we all know that happened. So nowadays, it's really a family-friendly place. We have a gate that we close every night, and it keeps the riffraff, like some people, out. And it's been really successful. So if you go up there in the summer, you'll see families paddleboarding, picnicking. There's no longer transients or kind of the yahoos that used to go up there. And no offense, I'm just teasing you, but there were some pretty ugly scenes up there when I first started here, and now it's really cleaned up with a few improvements. So I'm proud of that.
I want to hear a cool Morgan Lake story. Yeah. So you talked about it being a wildlife refuge at one time, and this is the only time I've ever seen this in my entire life. We were going up there. It was like real early in the morning. We were going up to fish in Crawdad, and you're coming up and you have the big open field there on the right before you take the right to go in. And right there in that field, I got to watch a doe drop a fawn.
Wow.
Birth right there. I mean, it was the craziest, coolest thing I ever seen.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, you don't get to see that.
No, you're right. You don't. Yeah.
It was just a chance thing, and we just stopped and we just sat there and all. We didn't have phones back then, so we couldn't record it or anything, but it was quite spectacular.
Yeah. I'm sure that doe was like, what? Right here in the middle of the field? All right.
I didn't think it had a choice.
I had no control. Yeah. Boom.
It just dropped it.
All right. Well, Stu, you've been, how long have you been here now?
About 7.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm one of your big fans. I just really appreciate everything that you've done. And every time you talk, I just pray, literally, God, don't take him away from us. Keep him here. Yeah. Because you've just done great things. So, but the ball field, tell us about what's been happening at the Pioneer Park ball fields and how that came together a little bit.
Yeah, this is a big time project. So, I don't know, a couple of years ago, the head baseball coach, Parker McKinley for the high school, started the ball rolling on this. He got some community members together and he said, we need a turf infield for baseball because the university's coming and the grass cannot take the beating and the wear and tear of grown men and these high school kids. I mean, the college team has like 50 or 60 guys in the fall. And it's rough because that's the time of year where the grass is starting to go dormant and it really damages the turf, right? So he said we need artificial turf in the infield where the heavy use areas are. So the plan was to do artificial turf and then grass outfields because it would be cost prohibitive to do the whole thing at phase one. So he started gathering community volunteers and businesses to support the project. So fast forward a couple of years, the university put up some money, the school district put up some money, and we did a contract to hire a contractor to come in and do turf in not only the varsity baseball field, but the JV softball field. Now, why the JV softball field, right? That's your first question. Well, because it has lights and it has a big backstop already and most of the infrastructure, but mostly the lights. Long story longer, the outfield of that field needed repair too. So we dug up the outfield at the same time and installed some drainage and replaced the dirt. And we're able to create these two amazing ball field infields. So before we get going on questions first, that's the overall, but I've got to shout out all these people because Brian Bell did all the excavation for free.
Yeah, but tell us what had to be done. Yeah, because that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so we had to dig out about 12 inches of material, the entire infields, right? Then we had to dig out the left field of community field, and that's a lot of material. We're talking about thousands of cubic yards of material we had to pull out of those ball fields, right? Then back in, then the drainage gets installed. Then we go to filling it back with rock, drain rock and gravel and 3/4 minus and all that jazz. So that gets all filled back up to about 10 inches. And then the final 2 inches are the turf. And that gets installed right on top of the gravel. And then they put the sand and the little rubber pellets on top of that. So
those are called turf turds, Stu.
Yeah. I've got a bag of them, so they're pretty exciting.
I got a bag of them in my house on the carpet.
Yeah, no doubt. So they stick to your shoes. They're all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. So now give us the shout out. So who helped with that?
Yeah. So Brian Bell did all the dig outs. He's a local baseball dad and community member. Has been great to us. Him and a bunch of buddies came down and brought some big equipment and just did that. Rogers Asphalt did a bunch of hauling and blade work. So they made it all level. RD Mac donated all the rock. I mean, unbelievable community support for this project. Volunteers like, Mitch Williams and others that came down to run trucks for us. Josh over at Eastern Oregon Rental giving us free rental on equipment when we needed it. Of course, the Public Works Department, Parker McKinley, obviously, the school district folks and the university for writing the checks. So this is the essence of LeGrand that I cannot explain to people, how people are so supportive of parks in this city. I talk to my colleagues across the state and they just shake their head. like this project would have been $500 to $1 million, and we're gonna be under 300 on it because of all the volunteer work and labor. And it's just, I don't know, I'm just so proud of it. And that's the reason, Brent, that you don't really have to worry about me leaving, because there's nowhere else in the state, at least, where we have so much support from the community. And it's so humbling, and I'm so excited to make such an amazing asset for this community.
Cool. Show us some of those pictures, Kyle.
Yeah. So what you're looking at, that's the softball field directly under you there, and you can see the outfield is all tore up. It's all blank. It's all skinned, and that's because that's where we replaced a bunch of it. And in the top there, that's the boys' baseball field. You can see it's a lot bigger. And the grass in the outfield, we were able to save all of that, or most of it. There's a little bit behind first base. You can see, that's a better picture behind first base. You kind of see that pile of dirt there. When we installed the turf, the outfield was pretty low right there, so we had to fill in. And we're right in the process now of installing the final irrigation ditch around there. And there's a close-up of the turf. That's the softball field there. And
wow. It looks like grass.
Looks real.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the brown is turf too, right?
It's all the same material. It's just painted ground. That's the brown. That's the baseball field there, the infield. So we've got a lot of work to do still before we can open those babies up. We're still in the process of rebuilding the irrigation in the outfields of softball field. And then also, obviously we have to get that hydro seed down. So I need 2 more weeks of warm weather so I can get that seed to germinate. Can you make that happen?
We'll put in a request with our weather guy. So, so what's it like to slide on turf? Probably, have you done that, Kyle? What's that?
Yeah, I have. It's different. So it all depends on how hard the dirt you're sliding on is. So some dirt's nice to slide on, some dirt's not. And turf's different. Like as long as you're wearing compression shorts, turf's not going to tear you up bad. I did slide, but I didn't slide a lot because I wasn't a speed demon exactly. But I know on foot, like when it comes to playing football on turf, you get turf burns. I mean, that's just part of it. It's a little bit harder, but it's not horrible, especially if it's got a little moisture on it. You can slide quite a ways on turf.
Yeah.
A lot of fields have dirt still like around the bases. I'm so glad they didn't do the outfield in turf though. Man, that is turf does not belong in an outfield in baseball for the simple reason that when a ball gets hit, it's like a rocket on turf. I mean, but it takes true hops, right? So there's a give and a take. So you're getting true hops off of turf. You know what hop you're going to get almost all the time. But in the outfield, you hit a ground ball and it can get all the way to the fence. And I'm not a fan of that. So I'm glad we didn't turf the outfield.
Yeah, the biggest asset, the biggest advantage to that is the durability. Like I talked about, if you've got baseball from EOU and the high school, it's going to be able to hold up to that because basically you're playing on a carpet over rock. And it's got sand and those rubber pellets for padding. But I mean, it does feel squishy when you walk on it. It feels kind of soft. However, like you said, when you're sliding in it and playing on it, what's it like to pitch off a turf mound? Have you done that?
So yes, I have pitched off a turf mound, and I've coached a lot of kids that have pitched off turf mounds, and me personally, I don't have much of a preference. I mean, I grew up playing on dirt, so I mean, dirt would be my first choice, but like mound wise, like taking care of a mound, which was super important to a pitcher, taking care of your mound. With a turf mound, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
And it's going to, like a lot of these kids around here, they're used to pitching off of artificial mounds because in the fall and in the winter, you're in the gym throwing off of a wooden mound. I mean, that has turf on it. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for any of the kids like here in the high school. I think the biggest thing is just getting used to taking ground balls on turf. It's way different. It's really fast, and you have to get used to seeing the turf turds fly up behind the ball, which is a different perspective. On dirt or on grass, you don't see the little rubber pellets popping up behind the ball, and so it's just going to take a little time for the kids to get used to it. Most of the college kids, they've played on turf plenty. I mean, especially kids from the west side of the state, every field over there is turf pretty much. So I don't think it'll be a big transition for the athletes. I think that the biggest thing will just be getting used to the speed. It's a different speed.
Yeah, so you make a couple of good points, right? The west side has a bunch of these, but we are now, I think, the only turf infields in all of Eastern Oregon. That's a really big deal. I don't think anybody else has them. We're going to draw lots of tournaments. We're going to draw lots of interest for people wanting to come play. When visiting teams come, it's going to blow their mind. And the word's going to get out, if it hasn't already, quick. And I think you're going to see big things here. Talk about the mound. The mound on the baseball field is removable. It's not anchored. So it's so heavy that it's not going to move. But here's the cool part. If I want to have moonlight or a softball tournament, I can run 2 fields now 24/7 because I can pull that mound off and I've got a softball field, because they have these, for lack of a better term, like Velcro bases that you can stick on the turf anywhere you want. So you can move them to 60, 65 feet and have a softball field. So if there's a huge girls tournament that we want to run, we can run girls softball with 2 fields. We can run moonlight. We can run adult co-ed. We can run adult men's. We can run a lot of different tournaments. And I just think that's another really cool feature of what we did. It's going to be great.
Yeah, they have something similar in Clackamas. They have a big sports complex in Clackamas, and they did the outfields too in turf, and they have the removable mounds, and that's like super nice, especially for like when you have younger kids playing, 50, 70 kids, or the shorter distance for the mound and the bases. It just makes everything so much easier, and then you don't have a kid throwing off flat ground with a mound behind him. Right. I mean, really,
it's going to be huge. So I don't know. I'm ecstatic about this project. It's a huge project for my little tiny crew. I've got 3 or 4 guys working on it, and without all those volunteers and all that help, I mean, there's no way.
Right.
Well, if you need a marketing video for that, you just let us know.
Yeah.
We know someone.
Yeah, we know someone.
TJ wants to know if they're going to repave the back road behind the fields.
Yeah, that's a great question. Boy, don't we all want that? That's on the public works agenda. It's not my department, but my dream is actually, I mean, you heard it here first, but my dream is I want to go back into that hillside, maybe about 50 feet, build a retaining wall, and then create diagonal parking throughout with 2-lane traffic. I think that would be huge, with sidewalks, curbs, and gutters on the ball field side. I think that's the big dream that is kind of on their list, that we'd like to get funded with some grant funding at some point.
Well, I can tell you one thing: the baseball field, especially compared to when I played on it I played on it from like 91 to 97 or 98. It's a whole different place. I mean, it really is. It's so much more aesthetically pleasing. It's so much more functional. The clubhouses, just everything about it is better today. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's another good example of volunteer support. A volunteer group led by Shane Fredericks built the third base dugout last year, and they added some extra storage space and clubhouse behind it. So, the other part of that is the first base dugout where the home team is out of the high school. Our plan is to re-side that, and then we need to paint all that tiger blue. So it's going to look really sharp here in the spring.
EOU is not going to be home in that dugout. Their baseball coach is a purist, and the home team does not belong in the first base dugout. That was the first thing I said when I came back. I'm like, what are they doing over there? Like, that's the wrong dugout. And it's a bad dugout because of the simple fact that a lot of the games are in the afternoon and the sun just beats right into that dugout. I could not believe that they were in that dugout.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That's before my time. I won't take any credit for that.
No. Well, it's just not. It's not. It's very unusual for a home team to be in a first base dugout. It really is.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, Stu, let's shift gears a little bit here and pivot. So, it was funny because I was just talking to Donna Beveridge, I don't know, a week and a half ago. She was on the show and we were talking about the need for after school care or for daycare for kids and how it's an absolute crisis right now, especially parents that are trying to get back to work after COVID and they're trying to balance out, child care and pay for that on a salary. And so, and I know that's been a passion. Why don't you talk a little bit about the history of the after school programs and then kind of what's new with what you guys are doing?
Sure. So let's go back to when I got here. We did something called the Mobile Fun Unit that traveled around in the summer, and it went to different parks. And it was like, we'd show up at Candy Cane Park and do some arts and crafts and games for a couple hours in the afternoon. And that happened in the 90s and the early 2000s. And it kept going. And it just kind of was dying when I got here. And there were a few people going, and it was, I don't know, $5 for a kid to do that or something. And it was not childcare. It was just an activity in the summer. And then we started kind of evolving into full summer programs from 7:30 to 5:30, so parents could get some childcare during the summer. And then Kids Club, of course, ran a great childcare program out of Riverside over the last several years. Well, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, they ran into some financial difficulties. I think it was well publicized in the paper and around town. And essentially, they had to close up shop, right? So that left a huge hole in childcare, after school care, especially. So there was nothing in town that I'm aware of other than, grandma's house or small childcares out of households. So, I talked to my staff about it and said, look, we need to jump in here and start offering some childcare. So we jumped into Riverside and did childcare last school year. And last school year, if you remember, was COVID crazy. So you had online school in the morning, and then school got out at 1:00 and parents had to juggle all that. So we were able to get, laptops and hotspots with the help of the library to get so you could drop your kid off. They could attend school at our program on their laptop with their headphones on, their whole thing. And they're doing school. And then we were helping them. And then they would just go into, we'd feed them lunch, and then they'd go into their after school program and we'd do fun stuff. So that was COVID. And then once school started in person, of course, the kids came at 1 after school from the bus. And now this year in the fall, same thing. Kids came to Riverside after school. School goes till 2:30, 3 o'clock now. So they get there about 3, and we run them through a variety of organized activities and activity stations. So we're doing science, technology, engineering, and math. We're doing arts and culture. We're doing physical activity. We're doing homework assistance and tutoring and all that in Riverside. And it's fine, right? Kids get on the bus, they come there. But this summer, we talked to the school district about what if we could launch this at the schools so parents could not worry about the transportation or not have to worry about their kid. They drop their kid off in the morning at school. Their kids now, they're able to be there till 5:30 when they get off work, and they can pick their kid up at school. This is a win-win for everybody, right? Because we've got school facilities that aren't hugely used right after school. Sports are in there definitely after 5, but there's some empty spaces. It is going to affect teachers, and we're going to work together with the school, of course, to make sure that we take care of them as well. But can you imagine the community impact? So the exciting thing is that that's going to launch on Monday, and we're talking about $35 a week, like $7 a day, should be affordable for most people because the school district's not going to charge us rent, and we're able to take that savings and and drop that price dramatically because of that. We pay rent at Riverside, so we're able to basically cut that price in half. So I think all families can afford that. And if they can't, of course, we'll have scholarships that they can apply for. But same thing, we'll be in the schools, we'll do homework, we'll do, all those things, arts and culture and science and arts and whatever, the whole business, physical activity. And at the schools, of course, the playground's already there. The outside field spaces are already there. The gymnasium's already there. And a lot of times we'll be able to utilize that infrastructure that they already have, that they're used to and comfortable with. So I'm ecstatic and I just can't even believe this is happening. And the school district has been an amazing partner. And speaking, I'm just going to keep talking. So the other amazing thing about that is that it'll provide the schools intervention opportunities with kids that are struggling with different subjects. They'll be able to come in and work with them after school. They'll make, we'll have snack available for them. So all the needs of children will be met after school. This is a program that worked where I was at my last job in Woodburn. We were in all the schools, whether it was a cafeteria or gymnasium space, and it worked amazing. And the teachers were very gracious. And believe me, it's going to be a struggle in the beginning because it's going to be new and change is hard, right? But it's going to be a huge community asset, and I'm so excited that parents have an opportunity now to sign up for that. So it's going to be amazing.
Are you going to teach them how to be the biggest cheerleader at LHS football games?
Nobody can compete. No, that's like
nobody can compete.
No,
I can hear you all the way up in the booth.
No, that's not even a contest. I mean, I try to get the student section to keep up with me. They try, but I mean, come on. I actually tell prospective applicants. I just spoke at a college class last week, and I said, look, the number one thing I'm looking for in part-time staff that work with kids is to be a cheerleader. Because if you can be a crazy, nut around kids, you're going to connect with them right away. Yep. And that's actually happened at the football games too. Those kids turn around, they're like, "Yeah, Stu, what's up?" It's awesome.
Yeah. I do the same thing, and I'm not even a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes, Stu, let's go.
No, when I was a youth pastor, you just knew it's like, okay, I'm going to make an idiot out of myself to be friends. Yep, and
that's the trick.
It worked. Yeah, you play with the kids and engage them, and it works. So
I don't even have to change to engage with kids because I'm
you're already there. It's like
me too.
Yes, like okay, we're gonna have a staff meeting, so take off your 12-year-old hat, please.
Right.
Yeah. Nah. I'm just jazzing.
And I have to lead a city department and be serious at city council. That doesn't go well.
I know.
That's a struggle. Everyday struggle.
I've sat with you in seminars before, and I was. Yeah, you were amazingly mature. I don't know how to. Yeah, it's like
It's a while.
Yeah. So no. Well, and so what schools is this starting at, and how do people get involved in this, Stu?
Yeah, so this is going to run at all 3 elementary schools in the LeGrand School District, Island City, Central, and Greenwood. I talked to the city manager about Island City because it's not in LeGrand, right? But to offer this wraparound service, we felt it was important to prioritize all 3 in the LeGrand School District. Even though we're the city of LeGrand, we clearly serve everybody in the LeGrand School District and beyond. Optimus Football's got teams in Cove and Elgin and whatever. I mean, it's what we do. So the website to register and information is www.legrandparks.org. So you got to put the W's in there, legrandparks.org. And when you launch that, you'll see the after school tab on the program site. It's a catalog. You select which weeks you want to sign up for, and you just pay right on the website. You fill out the waiver, and then you do the whole, the emergency contact info, and then your kid's registered. And then, of course, we'll work closely with the schools to communicate different aspects, where we're at, what we're doing, and away we go. It's going to launch on Monday, this coming Monday, the 18th. We've got staff fully trained and up and running. We've got supplies ready to roll, and it's just going to be such a huge asset that I think it's going to be something that's going to transform our community. You talk about the ball fields and bringing people to town, but you also talk about recruiting doctors, right? You hear the CEO of the hospital talk about, we need things like this, because what doctors need childcare, doctors need ballparks like this to see the community is a well-rounded, the quality of life. I mean, all that counts, right? And that's why it's such a priority for everyone, not just the kids that are maybe the struggling ones that we talk about and try to address a lot, but also the affluent kids that have parents that work a lot.
Right. I love how you say it like that. It makes LeGrand more attractive.
Yeah.
We're struggling finding people to work right now, and we're struggling to find businesses to come in and just little things.
Yeah.
And I don't consider this little, like on the grand scheme of themes, it is a little thing that makes LeGrand more attractive. It really does. And when you were talking about the baseball fields, you know, and the softball field getting returfed and that bringing tournaments and stuff here, that motivates people like to maybe the city or maybe somebody will look at you know, a new hotel or a new place for people to stay for these tournaments, and that'll make EOU even more attractive as well, because we could have a lot of stuff going on here with not a lot of work.
Yeah, those little things really add up, and I don't think a lot of people notice that or think about that. I know, like the CEO of the hospital does. You know, he actually called me and he said, "Look, this is huge for us," and he's talking about the ball fields, you know, but obviously the after school program will make an impact. Every little thing we do, I think, to do, you know, community events and activities. You guys have all kinds of those organizers on the show. Those are the things that make LeGrand special. And like we talked about, the community support for parks and rec, and I mean, unbelievable. I have the dream job, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to touch on real quick, Stu, is like these programs like this, they affect long term too. Like if you can keep like one or two kids off of drugs in the future with a program like this, you're winning. Period. Sure. I mean, even if it's one kid, you're winning.
Yeah, and not all kids play sports, not all kids do band, not all kids do after school activities, you know, or some kids just kind of fall through the cracks. So every time we can try to catch some of those kids, huge deal. And every time the school can help them with improving their schooling and their learning, I mean, huge deal. So you're right.
Absolutely.
It's not only an impact on the parents, but the literally lifelong impact on the kids as well.
Yep. And the community for that matter.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've been here 25 years, and it's only been the last, 10 years, 8 years that I've been kind of economic development aware, for a lack of better term, and, it's kind of like when you go to a nice restaurant and it's got a great environment, and that's kind of what we are. We got a great environment, and so you get in the door, and then you stay because you don't have obstacles. You stay because the food is good. Yeah. You found your way to the restroom okay. You had a pleasant experience with the waitress, and so on and so forth. And so those are the things, is that us removing the obstacles. Oh, they have a nice ball field. Oh, they have an after school program. Oh, they have a swimming pool. Oh, they have a library. Oh, they have, so then all of those things, the grocery store is easily accessible. The people are kind. The traffic isn't bad. The crime is down. And all of that environment is still there. Yeah, it's, 10 minutes I can see an elk. Those are all the things that add up to, like, wow, this would be a great place to live. Yeah. And
I call Eastern Oregon the black hole, but like the black hole in a good way. Because people that grow up here, they all want to move away and they want to try all this other stuff, and then they realize that the grass isn't greener on the other side, and they all come back. They get sucked back because it's just such a great place to live, and the community is it's always. It's better even today than it was, and I thought it was good back when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, so hey. Talk for a minute about, the one thing that we are seeing, and I know that it's in your purview, is, and I decided I wasn't going to talk to you about this, but it's really relevant, and that is the Mac Square. It's just the environment of Mac Square. It's just a wonderful facility, but clearly during COVID and this situation, the warmer weather, it's just kind of turned into a negative place. Are there ordinances that what tools do we have to work on that problem, Stu?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right?
Right.
And it's all perspective,
Right.
It's not empty. There are people hanging out there. They look disheveled usually. They're on the stage. I know the police have been down there a few times. So we have a city ordinance that says there's no sleeping in city parks, basically no camping in city parks. So that is kind of the number one tool that we have to use with that kind of behavior. Now, if somebody's hanging out in the park and they're under a blanket and they're awake and they're just hanging out, whether it's on a bench or on the stage or wherever, Riverside Park, wherever, right? You have a right to do that. It's a city park. It's a public space. You can have a blanket on your lap or not if you're sitting on a bench at a
Right.
park, if you look at it from that angle. So if they're not committing a crime, if they're not sleeping or camping, there's nothing we can do. It's a public space. However, in the middle of the night with your eyes closed with blankets on you, it's pretty hard to argue you're not camping in the park. So that's an argument that some people have made. No, I'm not camping. I'm just taking a nap or relaxing or whatever. Well, that's the police discretion, but we do have the right to trespass them if they're doing that. The global picture is more difficult and complicated. There was a landmark Boise, Idaho case that gave folks the right to be in public spaces no matter what. Essentially, and I'm dumbing it down a lot, but you can look it up if you want to do the research. But it provided folks that wanted to be in the park anytime that they can. Basically, it ruled on their side, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. They are there, and they can be there. That changed the dynamics for enforcement everywhere, especially here, and more cities are being challenged with their ordinances to give those folks rights to be in parks. Citizens are very concerned about it. We get lots and lots of phone calls. The police department gets lots and lots of phone calls. Sometimes it just looks bad. They're not doing anything wrong. They just look bad. And some people have said, I'm scared to take my kids through there, or, I want to walk around now because I don't feel safe. When the reality is, some of those folks are just hanging out. They're not
right. And I totally agree. Genuinely, the interaction that I've had with folks like that and those folks, it's not a safety concern. It's just we've not experienced that. I'm sure that when the snow comes, some of that will take care of itself. Nobody's going to want to stay outside, but it's different. I mean, everybody is experiencing this in one way or another. Right. It's just finally flowing to our doorstep a little bit. So.
It's true. Well, it's flowing to our doorstep because there's a housing crisis, for one thing. I mean, there's not a place for people to live. Like my perfect example is my parents. My parents are trying to get a house built, and they were staying in a friend's house while he's in Alaska, and he's coming back, and they had a rental all set up, and it fell through, and now they're like scrambling, and they even have money. I mean, they have plenty of money. That's not the issue. Yeah, it's like trying to find a place is the issue right now for a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, they could have a corner. They could have a corner down at Max Square. They would. I'm just kidding.
That was a bad joke.
I know, but it's like, it's like you, yeah.
Well, the reality is, we have to offer them, we offer them services through the police department, and nonprofits, local nonprofits offer services. The reality is they have rights up to a point. And then when they, start breaking the rules, then the police have been down there enforcing that. I think a lot of people think the police they just kind of ignore it, but that's not true. I actually got a phone call yesterday from a police officer clarifying what the ordinance said so he could trespass somebody from Max Square. And you know what? The farmers market still is down there. We still have great positive activities downtown.
Oh, yeah.
It definitely affects things, perspective wise, but I think it's just sort of a new reality, like Kyle's saying, and we're talking about, there's a whole big picture here, including other court cases that affect what we can do. So, a lot of people there's been some funny suggestions, can we can we transport them, give them bus tickets? Can we, I don't know, all kinds of crazy ideas, right? But in the end, if they're not breaking the law and they're not breaking the park rules, they have a right to be there.
Yeah, you hear about it pretty much constantly downtown. Like I spend some time in Brother Bear and other places downtown, and you just hear it's a constant conversation that comes up. Yeah. And there's not a solution right now. That's the issue.
That is the issue. Yeah.
Well, I guess I would encourage people, and I've done this, to go introduce yourself, to go meet those people, to go, and sometimes what you see is different. You interpret as fear, but it's just you're uncomfortable. It's not. You're not, and the way that you get comfortable with it is you just push yourself to go meet those people. They have names. They have a story, and I'm sure that their whole day would just be changed and made if a total stranger was kind to them, and how difficult is that for us to do? So on the same hand, and Kyle and I have talked about this, that people will flow to the least path of resistance, wherever that might be, and I think that's happened in Portland. People are camped everywhere because there is no restriction. Food is easily, I've seen interviews of people that are like, yeah, if you're going to be homeless, Portland's the place to go because you can get great food. You can, so there has to be some restrictions. There has to be some banks to the river, or the water just goes everywhere. So,
yeah, I don't think anybody has any solutions.
Yeah. So, hey, one more thing. So, talk about what you guys are doing with the trail at Riverside Park. That was very cool. And talk about that.
See, Brent's got all the insight because of this Rotary thing that they made me do the other day. So I don't know if you guys have been to a Rotary meeting.
They let you speak at a Rotary meeting?
Oh man, that was terrible. That was a bad idea. So the Riverside Greenway Trail dead ends, right? Everybody's been down there. You go, and then there's a barricade. Stop here, whatever. It's just weird. And the whole plan in the beginning was, the city of LeGrand invested $1 million on that bridge and that pathway with a handshake deal from the city of Island City saying that we'll continue it to the Island City ponds, which is sort of where, Miller's is right back in there before Miller's was built. And the ponds are still back there.
Is that like back behind RD Mac the other way?
Yeah, exactly.
I fished a lot when I was a kid there.
Yep. Yeah. So the dream was to build a community park back there where you could have accessible, fishing and recreating and kind of a nice picnic area. And then that trail would connect the two parks. Right? That was the original plan. So the city of Island City, with the county's help, wrote a grant, and they got awarded a grant for about $1.1 million from ODOT. It was a Connect Oregon grant, and it was supposed to create that pathway. Well, during the public process of evaluating the route of the trail, there was public outcry to not do that from a few neighbors that lived over there. And unfortunately, that final decision was to give that money back to the state and not build that pathway. And that happened a couple of years ago. So now, fast forward to the Parks Commission, a member of the public came and said, what if we build a loop trail that goes on the existing 3 additional lots that where that trail dead ends, and we don't have to acquire any property. We can just build that trail out. It'll come back in a loop. So think of a screw eye, right? It'll loop back down, and it'll serve 2 purposes. It will not dead end anymore. And if in fact the county or whoever else wants to pick up that project in the future, it can be a phased approach, because even though the trail loops, you can still extend it beyond that, right, to Island City. So the Parks and Rec Commission decided that was their number 1 priority to have me go get funding for last year. So I applied for 4 grants, and I got denied on 3 so far, but I still have 1 pending with the state of Oregon with state parks, and it's a recreation trails grant. I have a presentation here next week or a couple of weeks with the state, and hopefully we'll get funded. So with that, the dream is to build that extended asphalt pathway, but then eventually get some more funding to install outdoor exercise stations along the trail. So if you've been to a bigger city or other areas, you've seen like along a pathway, maybe there'll be like a pull up bar or like some weird metal contraption with some directions.
The dip station.
Yep. Yeah, so there's all kinds of those, and I mean, if you Google that outdoor fitness stations, you'll come up with all kinds of crazy. They've got everything now. Everything in a standard gym you can put outside, and it's built for outside outdoor use. So eventually, that's the plan. So if we can build a loop trail, it can still be a phase of the pathway project that goes to Island City if somebody else picks that up, and also it won't dead end, and there'll be some extra amenities back there.
That'd be so awesome. I remember like how like the very first few times that I rode my bike like through Artie Mac, I was always scared like going in that way, man. Like because you're like going through private property to get to these ponds, and back then they didn't have all those houses,
right?
So all those houses on the what would it be the north side of the ponds now. They didn't have all those back then. So I mean that was all. I think that was all, like you had to get there by going through Artie Mac, and that was kind of the scary part. But after a few times, it wasn't scary anymore as a kid. But I remember when I was like middle school age, there was a lot of people that rode their bikes there and fished, man, a lot.
Yeah, I think it's kind of developed out of that now. I don't think there's very many kids that go back there anymore. This would provide that access again, and I mean, it would just be cool to ride your bike from Walmart to Riverside Park, and
be sweet
back and forth. I mean, and back to the fishing, fishing along the river. It's just, unfortunately, some of the neighbors got really upset, and the city council in Island City decided not to do that. Unfortunate in my perspective. Some people, of course, think it's better off. And one of the facts that didn't really come out during that process is that even though your backyard is affected with a pathway, it actually increases your property value. I think the national average is like by 5% usually, because if you think about it, real estate listings, right? What's it say? Oh, we're on the Boise Greenway or whatever it's called. We're on the Greenway pathway, and that's like one of the first things on the real estate listing that attracts people. So unfortunately, that fact didn't really come out during that process, and those neighbors, won that argument, and they gave the money back, and I was sad about it.
Even the little town of Dallas, which is like a little bit bigger than us. So Dallas is on the west side of the state. They have those paths that run all through the whole town, and they're right in people's backyards. And it's just part of, public access and how people get around. Like, especially when the weather's nice, people are out there on their bikes, pushing strollers. And it's just a great place for safe place. Keep people off the roads too.
Yeah.
Which is real nice.
So
go ahead.
How much acreage is in that area where you guys are going to add the loop trail? Do you know?
Guess? I don't, not off the top of my head. There's 3 city lots back there, and they're, what are they, 100 feet wide, maybe something like that. So the extension of the trail will be another, about quarter to third of a mile by the time you pave it and come around. So it'll be, it's better than nothing. And I think it'll be a good asset, and it won't dead end. And that's kind of one of the best parts about my job is that there's always like the next thing to improve the community.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
Who owns those ponds in Island City? The city?
Yeah, I think the city of Island City owns those, and the city of Island City owns a lot where I'm talking about. The city of LeGrand owns a couple lots where I'm talking about. And then there's 2 or 3 private properties in between, and that's where the rub comes.
So is it like good old boy stuff, Stu? Like, because I know like the if the city owns those ponds, why is there private docks on them now? Like why do people have docks from their, you know what I'm talking about? I've been out there since I've been back. Like if they're city owned, why are there private docks?
Yeah, and that's the city of Island City's
deal. I didn't think you'd know, but
yeah,
I mean, it's a cop out, but I really have no idea how they manage that at all. I have no clue. If it was me, it'd be different. If it was City of LeGrand.
Yeah.
So one more thing before we quit, and that is there was a track that was being worked on in Pioneer Park, kind of like a bike practice track. I can't remember
pump track. Yeah.
Yeah. And where's that at? Is that still a thing? Is that still?
Yeah. There's a community group working on that right now. Still, they're fundraising. COVID killed a bunch of grant funding last year, so they're kind of bumped back a year. I think they're still hoping to apply for some grants next spring. And let me just use this as the pump track is a bunch of it's a paved circle track for BMX bikes, and the mission is that you can start on one hump, make it to the other, and then back up the other one without pedaling. So it's for little kids. And it can be like a trick BMX track for older kids, and it'll be right by the skate park. So there can be a cool transition between the two. And they are working on that. That's a big project. That's about a $350,000 project that they're trying to raise money for. They've got a bunch of local support, and they've got some in-kind support, but still need to get the bulk of that. And let me just put in one more pitch for my master plan process, which we're doing right now. The Parks Master Plan is underway. We are trying to figure out what are the needs of the citizens of LeGrand. So there's a variety of focus groups coming up next week and into November. If you want to get involved with that process, we already did a community survey with about 500 responses. Just give the Parks and Rec Department a call or email me or reach out to that website. You'll find us. You can easily Google us and figure out where we're at. But definitely encourage everybody to engage with that, because that will drive the priorities for the next 3 to 5 years.
Nice.
Great. And that was a question that somebody had asked, is is there a way we can help with the process? And that would be the beginning part. Yeah.
Yep. Stu, one more question from somebody watching before we go. She wants to know if there's a reason why they can't put a bike lane and sidewalk on May Lane.
Once again, outside the city of LeGrand's limit, it's not my department. That's a public works project, and probably with the county, I would say those projects are there. There are funding. There is funding for those types of projects. With infrastructure, there's some other safe routes to school money that may or may not apply to at that location. But I don't know if that's on their priority list with the county, or I think it'd be the county right there on May Lane.
So
the short answer would be talk to the county.
Yeah, I guess.
Sorry. Well, and I think that anytime you add a bike path, that road is pretty narrow. And the property is right up against the road a lot of places. And so the obstacle for those not that it can't be done, but the obstacle is that you essentially have to widen the road. You have to ask people to move their fences. And, there's a lot of work. When they put a few years ago, they put a sidewalk up on Sunset Drive because there was no access. This was probably 10, 20 years ago. There was no access for those kids at Central to get home. They had to walk on the street. And they had to take the front of people's yards, all along there in order to make room for that, that sidewalk on the other side. So anyhow,
so in government, as you guys might know, there's lots of great ideas out there, but they're always expensive and they're always complicated.
Right.
That's what takes so long to get things done. But on the other hand, everybody, I think at the city level, at least my coworkers, are all on the same page and trying to make our community a better place. So it's great. Good stuff.
Beautiful.
Good job. Yeah. And there are times Tanya will, she comes every day after working a full-time job and comes and does the books here, and she'll make suggestions, and I'll tell her, thank you, honey, but you do know that this is all Kyle and I do all day is think about how we can do this better. It's our whole job.
You just lost like 3 brownie points right there, BC. I hope you have some in the bank.
Yeah. So I try and be kind, and there certainly are times that she says things that I don't, I haven't thought of, but for the most part, is like, this is all I do. All I do. Yeah. So anyhow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Stu. Sure appreciate it.
You, Stu. Yeah.
All right, you guys owe me. That was like a marathon. So
yeah,
it was a marathon.
It was awesome. So
hey, next Friday at the football game, why don't you come up in the booth with me at halftime?
All right,
that'd be great.
I'll come up.
All right,
we'll hang
let's
out.
do it. That'll
Yeah,
be
I
fun.
get. Yeah, I know you probably wouldn't have anything to say. You're so shy. So
Hey man, I like to get things done, so that's you
Yes,
got to
you
have
do.
energy. You got to keep up. That's all.
We're
it
gonna
is.
talk football though. We ain't talking
All right.
Parks and Rec. We're
Let's
gonna
do it.
talk football. Let's do it.
Yeah, and then next baseball season, we're talking Mariners baseball because we're out of our drought next year, baby.
Well, good
This
luck with
close.
that.
hey, thanks, man.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right, bye.
All right. Let's get to on this day and get out of here.
Yeah.
On this day, which is what, October 14th, in 1884, George Eastman patented paper strip photographic film. 1884. On this day in 1964, Martin Luther King Jr. was announced as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. On this day in 1968 was the first live telecast from a manned U.S. spacecraft, which is funny because in the news right now, the big news is William Shatner just went into space, and he's 90 years old.
I know, isn't that crazy?
And he went into space. On this day in 1982, U.S. President Ronald Reagan proclaimed a war on drugs. And today, for any sports fans, know that today is Bartman Day. Fan Steve Bartman deflected the ball away from the Cubs outfielder Moises Alou. The Cubs ended up giving 8 runs up in the inning and lost to the Marlins, and it was seen as a turning point in the series. And the poor guy had to go into hiding for like 20 years. It was really bad because the Cubs had this curse, and they considered him part of the curse. On this day last year, a copy of William Shakespeare's First Folio sells for a record $9.98 million at auction in New York.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yes,
That's
it
a
is.
lot of money. On this day in 1981, the number one song in the country was Criss Cross, Arthur's theme. BC, you probably know all about that.
Yeah.
I wasn't even born yet. Christopher Cross, Arthur's theme.
Yeah.
That's 1981 on this day. So what is that? 40 years ago.
Yep.
Positive quote for the day comes from Helen Keller. Keep your face to the sunshine and you cannot see a shadow. Last time, keep your face to the sunshine and you cannot see a shadow.
Huh. That's kind of a cool quote for someone who is blind. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, but she could feel it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But she couldn't see the shadow anyway.
Right.
So
yeah.
Maybe, it says it's Helen Keller. Maybe it was somebody else. I don't know. But
no, it's good stuff, though.
Good stuff. Yep.
All righty.
Tuesday. What do we got? Anything this tomorrow? Just news. Sports show coming out today. It'll come out at 5:30 tonight, and I'm gonna have a soccer player from EOU, and I haven't had a soccer player on yet this year, and they have home games this weekend, so he's their captain, and he's interesting. So check out the sports show. Check out News Roundup. Check out the weather.
Yep. Good stuff.
We're out. Appreciate you, Eastern Oregon.
All right. Thank you.
EOAlive is your connection to Eastern Oregon. Get the latest and most